When you're always available, people get used to your presence. They begin to expect it. Your time, your energy, your love, your kindness. Those things become a given instead of a gift. And here's the truth most people don't want to face. If you don't step back once in a while, if you don't let people feel your absence, they'll never understand your value. Emotional absence creates respect. That sounds harsh, I know, but it's also powerful and it's real. We are so conditioned to stay connected, to always respond, to constantly be there for everyone else. And in doing that, we forget that we are allowed. No, we need to take space. Because when you're always the one checking in, always the one initiating, always the one showing up, you become predictable, not in a good way. In a way that people stop seeing you, they stop feeling you. You become part of the background noise, even when your heart is showing up loudly. The moment you pull back, the moment you stop overextending, something interesting happens. People notice. At first, they may not understand it. They may wonder why you're not texting, why you didn't call, why you didn't show up to help solve the crisis, but then they start to feel it. They feel the void you used to fill. They feel the silence. And in that silence, respect is born. See, when you're always present, people don't have to reflect. They don't have to question how much you mattered. They don't have to wonder how things would be without you, because you never gave them a chance to imagine it. But when you step back, even just a little, you give people room to evaluate. And that evaluation is key, because people do reflect, and they do remember. They remember your support, your consistency, your loyalty, your energy. And often that's the first time they truly understand what you bring to the table. Now, this doesn't mean you play games. This isn't about manipulating people or withholding love to get attention. It's about creating boundaries. It's about stepping into your power. It's understanding that your presence is a privilege, that your emotional investment in someone's life is not something they are entitled to. It's something you choose to give. And if it's not appreciated, you have to be brave enough to remove it. When you let people miss you, you teach them. You teach them that you're not going to overextend. You teach them that you're not available for one-sided relationships. You teach them to respect your time, your energy, and your emotional labor. And maybe most importantly, you teach yourself that you are enough, even in silence, even when you're not performing, giving, helping, or fixing. Because here's the secret. The people who truly value you, they will feel your absence deeply. They'll reach out. They'll step up. They'll miss your laugh, your voice, your advice, your presence. And the ones who don't, they'll fade away. And that's a gift too, because you no longer have to wonder where you stand. You no longer have to chase people who only notice you when you're loud, available, and convenient. Letting people miss you gives you clarity. It filters out the noise. It reminds you that your power doesn't come from being everywhere for everyone. Your power comes from knowing your worth, even when you're not being acknowledged. So if you're feeling exhausted, overlooked, or underappreciated, step back, say less, do less, pull your energy inward, stop explaining, stop proving, and just watch what happens. Let the silence speak for you. Let your absence communicate what your words never could. Because the truth is, when you learn to let them miss you, you teach the world how to value you. And you teach yourself that you were never meant to be ordinary. You were meant to be unforgettable. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Silence is uncomfortable for most people, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. We live in a world of constant noise. Texts, notifications, opinions, explanations. Everyone is talking. Everyone is reacting. And because of that, people have become desensitized to words. They hear them, but they don't always listen. But silence makes people stop. It makes them think. It makes them wonder. Silence invites introspection. It forces attention. When you go silent, not out of anger, not to punish, but out of self-respect, you reclaim your energy. You stop pouring into conversations where your words are falling on deaf ears. You stop trying to prove your worth to people who weren't really listening in the first place. And what happens in that silence is remarkable. People begin to hear you more clearly than they ever did when you were speaking. You see, when you're constantly explaining yourself, constantly justifying your feelings or your decisions, you're actually disempowering yourself. You're putting your energy into trying to be understood by people who may not be interested in truly understanding you. Silence changes that dynamic. It flips the script. Instead of begging to be heard, you let your absence do the talking. You stop participating in the noise and you create space for truth. Silence also gives you clarity. It creates distance from emotional chaos. When you stop responding out of habit, you begin to respond out of intention. You stop reacting to every little thing, and instead you start observing. You see people more clearly. You see patterns. You see who notices your silence and who doesn't. You see who reaches out when you're no longer always there. That clarity is essential because it helps you make better choices. It helps you protect your energy, and it helps you realize that not every situation deserves your voice. Not every argument deserves your defense. Not every relationship deserves your constant effort. Some things are best left unanswered. Some people are best left wondering. Not because you're trying to be cold or distant, but because you've grown tired of wasting your breath where it doesn't count. Silence is a boundary. It says, I don't have to engage to have power. It says, I don't need to over-explain to feel valid. And it says, I choose peace over chaos. And let's be honest. When you stop giving people instant access to your thoughts, your reactions, your forgiveness, they're forced to deal with their own behavior. They're forced to ask themselves, why isn't she responding? Why did he step back? That question, that pause. That's where growth happens, for them and for you. And it doesn't stop there. Silence also protects your dignity, because there are moments when nothing you say will change someone's mind. There are moments when arguing only drains you and gets you nowhere. And there are moments when your silence is the loudest declaration of your self-worth. It says, I'm no longer going to beg for decency. It says, you'll feel my absence before you hear my explanation. This is especially important in relationships, romantic, professional, or personal. When people get used to you always responding, always engaging, they assume access. They assume they can say whatever, act however, and you'll always come back with words. But when you go silent, you reset that pattern. You teach them to pause. You teach them to listen. You teach them that your voice is not a guarantee. And here's what's beautiful. The right people won't be threatened by your silence. They'll respect it. They'll lean into it. They'll reach out, not because you demanded it, but because they missed you. Because they realized the weight of your presence when it was no longer readily available. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself yet again, or to respond just to keep the peace, ask yourself if silence would serve you better. Ask yourself if speaking is helping or just feeding a cycle that leaves you depleted. You are not obligated to respond to everything. You are not required to keep conversations alive that are killing your spirit. Sometimes silence is your greatest act of power. Sometimes silence is your loudest truth. And sometimes silence is the only thing that gets someone's attention, because it finally gives them the space to notice what they've been ignoring all along, your value. You are not meant to chase validation. That's not your purpose. That's not your identity. Yet, so many of us get caught in this exhausting cycle of needing to be seen, heard, appreciated by everyone. We try to prove ourselves in relationships, at work, on social media, even in silence. It becomes a subtle addiction. If they don't acknowledge me, did I even do enough? That mindset is dangerous because it ties your self-worth to someone else's recognition, and that's a game you'll never win. Chasing validation always leaves you feeling empty. Why? Because even when you get it, it never lasts. One compliment, one thank you, one moment of approval, and then it's gone. You start looking for the next one, the next nod, the next person to say, hey, you're doing great. It becomes a never-ending loop. And deep down, you know it. You know that when your worth depends on someone else's reaction, you've handed over your power. Let them miss you. Let them wonder where you went. Let them feel the silence, because that's when you reclaim your energy. That's when you stop bending just to be liked. When you stop showing up in places that no longer feel good. When you stop doing things just to earn approval from people who never really see you anyway. You are not here to constantly prove you belong. You already do. You are not here to convince people you are good enough. You already are. The reason we chase validation is because we were taught to. Somewhere along the way, Maybe in childhood, maybe in school, maybe in a toxic relationship. We were taught that love is earned, that attention is a reward, that we need to achieve, to perform, to impress just to be worthy. But that was never the truth. That was someone else's broken belief system. And just because you learned it doesn't mean you have to live by it. Breaking that cycle means getting comfortable with not being liked all the time. It means being okay when someone misunderstands you. It means walking away without closure. It means choosing silence over explanation. And it's not easy. Because when you stop chasing validation, you're left with yourself. And if you've spent your whole life trying to be enough for others, standing alone can feel terrifying. But it's also the most powerful place to be. Because in that space, you start to realize you never needed their permission to feel whole. When you let people miss you, you are telling the world, I no longer need constant approval to feel worthy. You are trusting that your value doesn't disappear just because it isn't acknowledged. And that kind of self-trust is rare. It's magnetic. People feel it. They respect it, even if they don't understand it right away. You teach people how to treat you by the way you treat yourself. If you always go above and beyond for validation, you train others to only value you when you're giving. But when you start showing up from a place of self-worth, not needing anything in return, you change the dynamic. You become grounded, centered, clear. And that's when the right people are drawn to you. Not because you're trying to be impressive, but because you're authentic, you're real. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become cold or detached. It means you care without attaching your identity to someone else's reaction. It means you give love freely, but you don't lose yourself in the process. It means you share your light, but you don't dim it just to make someone else comfortable. Let them miss you. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you've stopped needing to be gotten. You've stopped needing constant feedback to feel secure. The people who truly matter will see your worth, even in your absence. And the ones who don't, let them go. You don't need to convince them. You don't need to chase them. You don't need to perform for them. You just need to be. Because the moment you stop chasing validation is the moment you start living from truth. And truth doesn't need applause. It stands on its own. Quiet, solid, unshakable. Just like you. Distance highlights impact. It's only when you step away that people begin to truly see what you brought into their lives. While you're there every day, giving, supporting, showing up, your presence becomes something they assume. They stop noticing the little things you do. They stop appreciating the effort you make. And not because they're bad people, but because familiarity often breeds complacency. Human nature gets comfortable, but distance shakes that comfort. It disrupts the rhythm, and in that disruption, clarity begins to form. When you're constantly around, when you're always involved, when you never give people the chance to feel what life is like without you, they don't fully understand your value. You can tell them how much you care. You can explain how much you contribute. But sometimes words don't land. Sometimes, the only thing that makes someone truly understand your worth is your absence. Not because you're trying to be dramatic or manipulative, but because space creates contrast. Contrast creates awareness. Think about it. You never realize how much light a candle brings into a room until the flame goes out. You never fully appreciate peace until you've experienced chaos, and you often don't know the full weight of someone's presence until they're no longer in the room. Your energy, your love, your support, it leaves a mark. But that mark becomes more visible when you're not constantly filling the space. When you take a step back, the echo of what you gave gets louder. And the truth is, people remember how you made them feel. That memory lingers. When you're no longer present in the way you used to be, those feelings come rushing back. They start to realize, wow, I didn't notice how much they were carrying, or I didn't realize how good it felt to have them around. That realization is powerful. It creates accountability. But it also creates deeper respect. But to let distance highlight your impact, you have to be willing to let go of control. You have to resist the urge to always be the fixer, the pleaser, the one who makes everything okay. You have to be strong enough to pull back, even when it feels scary. And it will feel scary because there's a part of you that worries. What if they don't notice? What if they don't care? But here's the thing. If your presence didn't matter, your absence wouldn't either. And if it doesn't, that's not rejection, that's redirection. That's information. That's information. That's truth you needed. Letting distance do its work also means releasing the need to chase clarity through conversation. Sometimes stepping back gives you answers you couldn't get with words. You see who checks in when you're quiet. You see who values the relationship enough to reach across the space. You see who was only there when you were doing the heavy lifting. And while some of those realizations may hurt, they also heal because they free you from dynamics that were never mutual. They give you permission to stop showing up in places that were draining you. You don't need to force anyone to see your worth. You don't need to demand recognition. What you need is to stand still long enough to let people feel the void you leave behind. And if that void doesn't feel like much to them, that's okay. It just means you were pouring too much into something that wasn't ready to hold you. That's not failure, that's feedback. It teaches you where to keep giving and where to let go. The irony is when you pull back, the right people will come closer. The right people will feel that space you used to occupy and realize how much it meant. They'll step up, they'll speak up, they'll show up because they recognize your value. So give yourself permission to create that distance. Give yourself the gift of space. Let it do its work. Let it reveal the truth. Let it elevate the relationships that are meant to grow and dissolve the ones that aren't. Because distance doesn't just highlight your impact, it also clarifies your direction. It shows you who's aligned with your energy and who is only comfortable borrowing it. And once you know that, you stop chasing and start choosing. You choose peace. You choose clarity. You choose yourself. Your time is a privilege, not a guarantee. The energy you give, the attention you offer, the presence you bring into someone's life, it's valuable. It's not something you owe to everyone. And the moment you start treating your time like a gift instead of a given, everything in your life begins to shift. You stop overcommitting. You stop people-pleasing. You stop spending your days and nights showing up for people who don't show up for you in return. Most of us were never taught to protect our time. We were taught to be nice, to be helpful, to be available, to say yes. And on the surface, those things sound good. But when they come at the cost of your peace, your priorities, your well-being, and your goals, they are no longer virtues, they're self-abandonment. You start pouring your limited hours into everyone else's needs, and suddenly there's nothing left for you. Your time becomes a currency spent on approval, not purpose. But here's what you must understand. Your time is the most limited resource you have. You can make more money, you can meet new people, but you can never get more time. Once it's spent, it's gone. So if someone treats your time like it's disposable, like it's replaceable, like it doesn't matter, you need to listen to that. Because it says everything about how they value you. If someone constantly expects you to be there without appreciating what that costs you, you have every right to pull back. You have every right to choose differently. It's not selfish to protect your time. It's smart. It's strong. It's necessary. It means you're living with intention. It means you've stopped giving away pieces of your life to people who only see you as convenient. You're no longer available just because someone else suddenly needs you. You're no longer rushing to fix, to help, to explain, to save. You're no longer putting your life on hold so someone else can get what they want right now. That's not cold. That's clarity. And clarity creates boundaries. When you start valuing your time, you become more selective. You begin to ask, does this align with who I'm becoming? Does this relationship honor my growth? Is this request something I want to do? Or just something I feel obligated to do? That kind of honesty is what separates a life that's reactive from a life that's intentional. You're no longer running on autopilot. You're choosing where to give your hours, your focus, your heart. And when you do that, your entire life levels up. People may not like it at first. They'll notice the difference. They'll feel your absence. They'll wonder why you're not as available as you used to be. But that's part of the process. You have to let them adjust. You have to let them sit with the discomfort of your boundaries. Because if someone only values you when you're overextending, that's not love, that's dependency. And you were not born to be anyone's emotional crutch. You were born to live fully, boldly, and intentionally. Let them miss your time. Let them feel the gap when you're no longer always there to solve, to show up, to soften the edges. Let them sit in the silence and reflect on what you used to give so freely. because that's when appreciation grows. That's when awareness happens. That's when people realize your presence is not a default. It's a decision you make every single day. And it's a decision that should be met with respect. This isn't about cutting people off. It's about being honest about what you have to give. It's about recognizing that your calendar is a reflection of your values, that the way you spend your time is the way you spend your life. And if you want to build a life that feels meaningful, joyful, and aligned, you have to protect your hours like they matter, because they do. So stop apologizing for needing space. Stop justifying why you're not as available anymore. Stop explaining your silence. You don't owe anyone your time simply because they ask for it. You owe it to yourself to use that time wisely. You owe it to your dreams. You owe it to your peace. You owe it to your peace. You owe it to your future, because your time is a privilege and not everyone deserves access to it. You don't have to chase people to keep them in your life. You don't have to beg to be loved, to be respected, to be understood. The relationships that are meant for you will never require you to sacrifice your dignity just to keep them alive. In fact, the ones that truly matter will thrive in your presence and survive even when you need space. But when you constantly feel the need to prove your worth, to earn someone's time, to fight for a place in their life, you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance. And that's not love, that's survival. One of the most powerful things you can do is stop running after people who walk away from you. Not in anger, not to punish, but because you finally realized that if someone can walk away from you without looking back, then they were never truly meant to stay. Let them go. Let them leave. Let them feel what life is like without your presence constantly filling the space. Because the right people, they don't leave when things get uncomfortable. They communicate. They stay. They grow with you. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking you're not enough when someone distances themselves. You start questioning everything, your words, your actions, your worth. But here's the truth. Someone's inability to love you properly is not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their capacity. And if they're not capable of meeting you where you are, that's not your failure. That's their limitation. Stop shrinking to make them stay. Stop chasing after the idea of potential. You deserve people who see you clearly now, not only in some ideal future version of who you might become. The moment you stop chasing is the moment you get your power back. You begin to move from a place of self-worth, not desperation. You begin to realize that silence can be more powerful than persuasion, that walking away can be more impactful than holding on, that sometimes the strongest act of love is letting go of someone who can't or won't love you in the way you need. Letting people walk is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's knowing that your energy is too precious to spend on people who make you question your worth. It's understanding that love is not meant to be earned through sacrifice and silence. It's meant to be shared freely and mutually. You shouldn't have to convince anyone to stay in your life. If your presence alone isn't enough, your effort never will be. The ones who truly value you will feel your absence. They will notice the space you once filled. They'll reflect on what they took for granted. And if they're meant for you, they'll come back. Not because you chased them, but because they realized on their own what you meant to them. That's the kind of return you want. Not one you pulled, pressured, or pleaded for, but one that comes from genuine clarity and growth. There's peace in knowing you don't have to force anything. What's real will stay, what's not will fall away and make room for something better. Letting people walk away gives life room to send you those who align with your spirit, your heart, and your values. People who won't flinch when you show up fully. People who won't fade when things get hard. People who meet you with the same energy you've been giving for so long. So trust yourself enough to let go. Trust that walking away doesn't mean you lose. It means you're brave enough to stop settling. It means you finally understood that you are not here to chase. You are not here to be tolerated. You are here to be respected, celebrated, and loved with the same depth you give so freely. When you stop chasing, you start choosing. You choose peace over confusion. You choose yourself over their comfort. And most importantly, you choose the kind of love that doesn't require you to disappear in order to be seen. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. That's a hard truth, but it's one that will change everything once you really understand it. You can't keep handing out all access passes to people who only show up when it's convenient for them. You can't keep allowing inconsistent energy, half-hearted presence, and one-sided loyalty into spaces meant for growth, healing, and peace. Your life is sacred. Your journey is valuable. And it's time to protect it like it matters, because it does. You have to start being more intentional about who gets access to your heart, your mind, your time, your energy. Because the more you allow people who aren't aligned with your values to sit close to you, the more noise and confusion you invite into your space. It becomes harder to hear your own voice, to stay grounded in your purpose, to move forward without second-guessing yourself. People who are not rooted in respect will always create tension. People who don't truly understand you will constantly challenge your authenticity, not to help you grow, but to make you doubt. There's a difference between being open and being unguarded. Yes, you should be kind. Yes, you should be compassionate. But that doesn't mean you allow just anyone to stay close. Not everyone is meant to be permanent. Some people are lessons, not lifelines. They come into your life to teach you something about boundaries, about strength, about your own worth. And once the lesson is learned, you don't have to keep them around. You can release them without guilt. You can let them go without explanation. It's not about being cold. It's about being clear. Clear about who you are. Clear about what you want. Clear about what you're no longer available for. You've grown too much to keep repeating old patterns just because it's familiar. You've healed too much to keep letting people disrupt your peace just because they've been in your life a long time. Length of connection doesn't equal depth. And history doesn't always mean harmony. So take a good look at who's sitting in your front row. Are they clapping when you win? Are they checking in when you're quiet? Are they helping you grow? Or are they holding you back? Because your inner circle should be filled with people who fuel you, not drain you. People who understand the value of your time, the power of your vision, the weight of your vulnerability. People who don't just want access to the benefits of being close to you, but who actually show up with consistency, love, and integrity. The truth is, not everyone is meant to come with you. As you grow, as you evolve, as you become more aligned with your purpose, some people will fall away. And that's not something to fight. It's something to honor. Because the more you grow, the more selective you must become. You can't pour into everyone and still expect to have enough left for yourself. You can't keep saying yes to everyone else's needs while your own life stays on hold. You have to start viewing your life like the masterpiece it is. You are building something powerful, something meaningful, and you need people around you who get that, who support that, who inspire that. You need people who challenge you in healthy ways, who remind you of who you are when you forget, who show up even when it's not easy or exciting. That's what real support looks like. Anything less than that doesn't belong in your inner circle. So don't be afraid to make some changes. Don't be afraid to create distance. Don't be afraid to move people from the front row to the balcony or out of the building altogether. That's not harsh. That's healing. That's protecting the most important investment you'll ever make. You. Because when you're surrounded by people who truly see you, who honor your boundaries, who speak life into your journey, everything becomes lighter. The path becomes clearer. And your energy finally becomes free to go where it's always meant to go, forward.